Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that cuts through the noise, getting you straight to the most vital insights from, well, the latest thinking and research.
That's right.
Today, we're tackling something absolutely critical. It's really the high-stakes gamble of launching new products.
It really is.
It's kind of amazing how often companies pour, huge resources into developing what turns out to be, an elegant solution for a problem that doesn't actually exist.
You see it all the time. It's not just the wasted money, though that's bad enough. It's the lost opportunity. It's huge.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. Our mission really is to show you how the smart organizations are flipping that script.
Yeah, we're talking about product idea validation labs. But honestly, we like to call them a validation engine because it's much more than a lab.
Right. It's not just a room with gear.
No, it's a core capability. An organizational muscle, if you like. It's designed to slash risk, make sure your resources go where they count, and speed up getting products to market that people actually want.
Okay, so if you've ever looked at a product launch and thought, why did that one succeed? Or maybe more often, why did that one completely bomb?
Yeah.
We're going to unpack how these validation engines get built, how they run day to day, and why they're just non-negotiable for success now.
And we should probably flag something right up front. There's a key difference between validating for B2B versus B2C.
Ah, good point. It's not the same game at all, is it?
Not even close. B2B validation is inherently, relationship intensive. The sales cycles or validation cycles are just longer. You've got way more stakeholder complexity.
More people to convince, different needs.
Exactly. You need really deep engagement, but with fewer, more strategic customers. And it takes time. It's not like B2C where you can, test an idea with hundreds of users super quickly.
Okay, got it. So that difference shapes everything that follows.
It really does. From setup to the methods you pick. Everything.
All right, let's dive into the strategic imperative then. Why validation isn't optional anymore? If it's so obvious, why do companies, smart companies, still build things nobody wants? Is it just like internal blindness?
It's this painful recurring theme, isn't it? The number one reason products fail, it's almost never the engineering talent. It's not usually the marketing budget either.
So what is it?
It's a fundamental lack of market need. Simple as that. People get excited internally. They build it, maybe in secret.
The Skunkworks project.
Right. And then launch to crickets.
Yeah.
Because nobody actually needed it. Remember the Amazon Fire Phone?
Oh, yeah. Packed with features.
Overloaded with features users did not want. That's the classic description. Or the even more infamous Juicero Press.
Ah, the $400 machine to squeeze a pre-filled juice packet.
Exactly. It perfectly solved a problem that did not exist.
Right.
A beautiful piece of engineering, maybe, but completely unnecessary.
A cautionary tale for sure. It's almost become a shorthand for over-engineering something nobody asked for.
It really has. And that's why we keep banging the drum about calling it a validation engine. It's not static, it's dynamic, it's powerful, it drives the whole system.
Look at core component.
Yeah, think of it like a turbocharger for your product development. It's constantly feeding user insights back into the process, a continuous integrated system.
So decisions get based on data, not just gut feel or who has the corner office.
Precisely. Its whole job is to turn those raw, maybe half-baked ideas into validated, investment-ready opportunities, opportunities you can bet on.
And this engine, it has a kind of checklist, 4 critical questions it needs to answer before you really commit.
That's a great way to put it. 4 pillars. First, problem-solution fit. Is this actually solving a real, significant, maybe even urgent problem? And for who, exactly? A clearly defined group.
Okay, makes sense. What's number 2?
Willingness to pay.
Yeah.
This is huge. Do people value your solution enough to actually pay for it, not just say they like it?
Because talk is cheap.
Exactly. Actual payment, putting skin in the game, that's the gold standard signal. Everything else is just noise, relatively speaking.
Okay, problem solution fit, willingness to pay. What's third?
Scalable demand. So, you found a real problem people will pay? Great. But is the market big enough? Can you actually build a scalable, profitable business around this? Or is it a niche within a niche?
Right, you could have the world's best solution for 3 people, not a business.
Precisely. And the 4th pillar ties it all together. Organizational fit. Does your company actually have what it takes? The money, the tech skills, the strategic alignment? Can you build it, launch it, and support it long term?
Those 4 seem pretty comprehensive, like a foundation.
You really are. Get those right, and you're building on solid ground.
So let's talk ROI. The return on investment, it's not just about avoiding flops like Juicero, right? There are positive upsides too.
Oh, absolutely. Financially, the big one is cost avoidance. Think of the millions saved by not building the wrong thing. Plus, you dramatically increase the probability of commercial success for the ideas you do pursue. And you avoid those painful, costly product sunsets down the road.
It's like preventative medicine for your product portfolio.
That's a good analogy. And strategically, the numbers are compelling. That 2025 Future of User Research report you mentioned earlier found organizations with deeply integrated research that's key reported 2.7 times better business outcomes.
Wow. 2.7 times. What does that translate to?
Things like a 5-fold enhancement in brand perception, an 83% improvement in product usability, a 63% increase in customer satisfaction. These aren't small bumps. This is a serious competitive edge.
And it changes the culture too, I imagine.
Definitely. It pushes the whole organization towards being user-centered. It breaks down silos because marketing, engineering, design, they all need to be involved. Decisions become evidence-based, not opinion-based.
So investing in this validation engine, it's really about future-proofing the business.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's fundamental resilience.
Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts then. The core process of validation. You said it's not linear, it's cyclical.
Yeah, that's crucial. It's not a one-and-done checkpoint. It's a cyclical journey. Teams learn something, they loop back, they refine. The ideal state is an always-on validation engine, constantly feeding insights back.
So a company wants to build this capability. What does that cycle look like? Is there a map?
There is. It's generally seen as having 6 integrated stages, though, again, you cycle through them. Stage 1 is define and empathize.
Okay, define and empathize. What happens here?
The goal is to frame the problem accurately and really deeply understand the user. So activities include setting clear, smart goals for the product or business. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
Basic blocking and tackling, but essential.
Absolutely. Foundational market research, too. Competitive analysis, sure, but also using things like Google Trends to see if anyone's even searching for solutions like yours, gauging that baseline interest.
And this is where user personas come in, those detailed profiles of your target user.
Exactly. But they need to be based on real research, not just made up, which leads to the core activity here. Qualitative discovery research.
Like actually talking to people.
Yes. Contextual inquiry, watching people in their own environment. In-depth user interviews. Diary studies where users track their experiences over time. Intuit's follow me home practice is a classic example. Go see the problem firsthand.
Because what people say they do and what they actually do
can be wildly different. Observation is key.
Okay, so after define and empathize, stage 2 is ideate and hypothesize.
Right. You understand the problem space now. So you start exploring potential solutions and critically forming testable hypotheses.
And you mentioned exploring multiple solutions.
Yes, the go broad to go narrow approach. Brainstorm widely first. Don't just latch onto the first idea that pops into your head. Then you narrow down and craft those hypotheses.
And these need to be falsifiable, right? Meaning you can actually prove them wrong.
That's the scientific rigor bit. You need to design a test where failure is an informative outcome. A good format is, we believe that this type of user will be able to do this thing using this feature. We'll know it's true when we see this measurable change.
Very specific.
It has to be. And this is also where you might use frameworks like Kano analysis to prioritize features. Is it a must-have, a performance booster, or just a delighter? Nice, but not essential.
Helps you focus on what really matters to the user.
Precisely.
Okay, stage 3, prototype.
Yep, time to build something. But the key here is create the simplest possible artifact needed to test your core assumption. Don't overbuild.
And the fidelity, how polished it looks, depends on the question you're asking.
Exactly. Early on, low fidelity is your friend. Paper prototypes, basic digital wireframes, using tools like Balsamic, quick, cheap, easy to change.
And you mentioned prototypes. What are those?
Prototypes are brilliant for validating demand with minimal effort. Think the landing page test. Set up a simple page describing the product, drive some traffic, see if people sign up or click learn more.
Measures real intent.
Or the fake door test. You put a button for a feature that doesn't exist yet inside your current product. If people click it, that's a strong signal they want it.
Clever and sneaky.
A little, but effective. And then there's the explainer video MVP. Dropbox is the famous example.
Right. They made a video showing how it would work before they'd fully built it.
And it blew up. Generated a massive waiting list, went from 5,000 to 75,000 users overnight. Proved overwhelming market demand with just a video. Later, for usability or detailed interactions, you'd move to higher fidelity interactive prototypes, maybe built in Figma or Axure.
Got it. Then stage 4, test and measure. This is where you gather the evidence.
Yep, both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitatively, you're doing usability testing, watching real users try to accomplish tasks with your prototype. Moderated sessions, unmoderated ones, identifying those pain points.
And Nielsen-Norman Group says you don't need huge numbers for this.
That's right, their famous finding. Testing with as few as 5 users can uncover approximately 85% of the usability problems. Incredibly efficient. You also do concept testing here. Does the core value proposition resonate?
And quantitatively.
Surveys, analyzing metrics from those landing page tests, A/B testing if you have a live product you're tweaking.
And the ultimate test, willingness to pay.
The acid test, getting actual financial commitments, pre-orders, maybe a Kickstarter campaign, direct sales if possible. That's the most potent form of validation. Someone actually giving you money is undeniable proof of value.
Okay, data collected. Stage 5. Analyze and learn, turning data into insights.
Exactly. This isn't just about collecting data, it's about making sense of it. For qualitative data, you're looking for themes, patterns, maybe using affinity mapping to group-related observations.
Yeah.
For quantitative, you're looking for statistical significance.
And then communicating that effectively.
Crucial. Synthesize it into clear reports, maybe update your user journey maps or personas based on what you learned, make it actionable.
Which leads to the final stage, 6. Iterate or pivot. Decision time.
Yep. Based on the evidence, what do you do? Do you iterate? Make some tweaks based on feedback and test again? Do you pivot? Realize a core assumption was wrong and formulate a new hypothesis, maybe targeting a different market or problem?
Or do you persevere?
Or you persevere. If the validation is strong across the board, you move forward to building a more complete minimum viable product, MVP, with much greater confidence.
And you mentioned a key tip, time boxing these cycles.
Yes. Keep each validation loop tight. Aim for less than or equal to 6 weeks. Any longer, and you risk drifting into full-blown development mode before you've truly validated the core assumptions. Keep it lean, keep it fast, learn quickly.
Okay, that 6-stage process provides a really solid framework. Now let's talk about actually setting up a lab. The space, the tools, the budget.
Right, and the philosophy here is often hybrid. You might need a controlled lab environment for certain things, like formal usability testing where you need consistent conditions.
Minimize distractions, good recording quality.
Exactly. But you also need to do research in the wild, that contextual inquiry piece, observing users in their natural habitats, so to speak, where the real problems live.
Right.
So it's often a mix.
And you don't necessarily need a NASA-level control room on day 1, right? There are tiers.
Absolutely. Tier 1 is basically the zero-cost pop-up lab. You find a quiet conference room, grab a laptop with a webcam, use standard video conferencing software like Zoom or Teams.
And that lets stakeholders observe remotely.
Yep, it creates a virtual two-way mirror. Super simple, incredibly effective for getting started, or if budget is tight, anyone can do this.
Okay, what's tier 2? Stepping it up a bit.
Tier 2 is the DIY dedicated lab. You dedicate a quiet room, ideally one you can lock for privacy and security. You invest a little bit in better gear.
Like what?
Maybe some more comfortable ergonomic furniture,
Yeah.
a better external webcam like a Logitech C920 for the participant, maybe a second webcam on a flexible arm to capture a mobile device screen or documents.
Ah, like a document camera setup.
Exactly. And you could use free software like OBS Open Broadcaster software to mix those video feeds together for recording or streaming. You can get a really decent DIY setup for under $200, not counting the computer itself.
That's surprisingly affordable.
Ah.
Okay, then tier 3, the pro level.
Tier 3 is the professional two-room lab. This is the classic setup, the gold standard you often see pictured. A test room for the participant and researcher, and an adjacent observation room for stakeholders, separated by a one-way mirror.
Sounds expensive. What goes into that?
It's a bigger investment for sure. You're talking proper soundproofing, high-quality glass, insulated walls, maybe baffles in the air ducts, careful lighting design, bright, and even in the test room, dark in the observation room.
And the tech gets serious too.
Yeah, professional AV. Multiple high-def, remote-controlled PTZ pan-tilt zoom cameras, high-quality microphones, maybe boundary mics on the table, lapel mics, a dedicated control station with multiple monitors, an audio mixer, a video switcher.
So you can capture everything clearly and control the view.
Exactly. And these days, these setups are also hybrid broadcast studios. They need excellent internet for high-quality, low-latency streaming to remote stakeholders anywhere in the world. It's not just about the physical room anymore.
Makes sense. So budgeting, that B2B guide had some specific numbers. What's realistic?
Yeah, it suggested a comprehensive $10,000 budget can establish a fully functional B2B product validation lab. Now, that's not pocket change, but compared to the cost of building the wrong product, it's peanuts.
How does that $10 break down, roughly?
Well, they gave a couple of examples. A budget-focused setup might spend around $2,200 on hardware, $1,800 a year on software licenses, and $3,000 on the physical setup and furnishings. That's about $7,000 up front plus recurring software. Oh wait, the source said $9,850 total for budget-focused, including some contingency or initial operating costs, perhaps?
And a more premium setup.
A balanced premium setup with similar total, around $9,950, but allocated more to higher-end hardware, maybe more premium software tiers, and a bit more professional infrastructure touches.
And there are ways to save money, too.
Definitely. Look at open-source software alternatives, things like Lime Survey instead of SurveyMonkey, OBS Studio for recording, GIMP for basic image editing. Check for educational or startup discounts on software. Those can be huge, like 50–60% off sometimes.
And you don't have to buy everything at once.
Exactly. Implement in phases. Start with the essentials, prove the value, then invest in upgrades as you go. Maybe phase 1 is $5K for the basics. Phase 2 adds $3K for better tools. Phase 3, another $2K for specialized gear.
Okay, let's talk tech stack. What are the key software categories and tools people are using?
It breaks down nicely. First, you need tools for participant recruitment, getting the right people for your studies.
Who are the big players there?
Tools like user interviews are great for speed and broad audiences. Respondent is really strong for finding niche B2B professionals. Prolific and Cloud Research are known for focusing on data quality, which is critical for quantitative stuff.
Okay, recruitment covered. Then prototyping and design.
Figma is pretty much the industry standard, now great for UI/UX design. Collaboration with FigJam whiteboarding. Axure RP is powerful for really complex, dynamic prototypes, especially for data-heavy apps. Balsamiq is fantastic for quick, low-fidelity wireframes with that hand-drawn look. And ProtoPie excels at sophisticated mobile prototypes with complex micro-interactions.
Then you need tools to actually run the tests and analyze behavior.
Right. User testing and behavioral analytics. User testing is a major platform, offering moderated and unmoderated testing, now with AI features for summarizing insights. Maze is popular for rapid, unmoderated tests, integrates tightly with Figma, gives you heat maps. Lookback is good for moderated interviews with high-quality recording.
And for live products.
Tools like Hotjar give you heat maps and session recordings to see how people are actually using your live site or app. Mixpanel is deep product analytics, tracking user funnels and behavior patterns over time.
Lots of data coming in. How do you manage the qualitative side, the interview notes, the observations?
That's where qualitative data analysis and insight repositories come in. For deep academic-style coding, you have tools like NVivo and ATLACE.pi. But becoming really popular are tools like Dovetail.
Dovetail seems to be everywhere now.
Yeah, it's great for collaborative analysis and building a searchable research hub or repository so insights don't get lost. Ticket is a good, free, open-source option, too. And we're seeing the rise of AI-powered synthesis platforms that can help automate transcription and even initial coding.
The AI copilot idea again?
Exactly. And finally, don't forget, specialized hardware. We touched on this.
Eye tracking and biometrics?
Yep. Eye tracking systems like Toubei give you gaze plots, heat maps showing exactly where people look. Biometric sensors, maybe from iMotions, can measure things like skin response, EIGSR, for emotional arousal, or even EEG for cognitive load.
So you get objective data beyond just what people say.
Right. It helps validate or challenge what a user self-reports. Sometimes people say they like something, but their physiological response tells a different story. It has another layer of understanding.
Okay, we've got the process, the setup, the tools. How do the big companies actually do this? Do they all follow this playbook, or do they have their own unique twists?
That's where it gets really interesting. There's definitely no single best strategy. It really boils down to the company's stage, their product type B2B versus B2C again, and, importantly, their internal culture.
Let's take Google. How do they approach it?
Google is famously data-driven. Rigorous experimentation is baked into their culture. They blend qualitative insights from their user experience research, UXR teams, with massive amounts of quantitative data from internal dashboards.
And product managers there are pretty analytical.
Oh yeah, they live in the data. They also use things like Google Trends for gauging early interest,
Mhm.
and design sprints, that 5-day process for rapid prototyping and testing ideas, are super popular there. They even have internal incubators like Area 120 and Google Labs for testing new ventures.
Okay, how about Intuit? You mentioned their follow me home thing.
Intuit's philosophy is Design for Delight, or D4D. Their mantra is gold. Fall in love with the customer's problem, not your solution.
That really shifts the focus.
Completely. Their process starts with that deep customer empathy. Direct observation is huge for them. Then go broad to go narrow for ideation. And finally, rapid experimentation, using low-cost methods like paper prototypes or simple landing pages. It's very customer problem-focused.
And Dropbox, we talked about their video MVP.
Yeah, they're a prime example of the lean startup approach. Validate that market demand with the absolute minimum investment first. That explainer video was genius-proved. People wanted it before they sunk huge costs into building it. And they continue to rely heavily on product analytics and A/B testing.
Netflix seems like the king of A/B testing.
Absolutely. Their culture is deeply data-driven experimentation. They essentially let users vote with their clicks and viewing habits. They run massive-scale A/B tests on almost everything: UI changes, recommendation algorithms, even the artwork for shows and movies.
Testing different thumbnails to see which gets more clicks.
Exactly that. They use control groups, treatment groups, and carefully monitor guardrail metrics to make sure a change doesn't negatively impact something else, like cancellations.
What about B2B examples? Slack is interesting.
Slack started with an internal-first approach. They built it for their own team's communication needs while developing a game.
So they were dogfooding it from day one.
Intensely. It was validated through months, maybe years, of their own internal use. Then they gradually rolled it out to a few friendly companies they knew, like Cozy and Radio, getting real-world feedback from actual B2B use cases before a wider launch.
How about a giant like IBM? Their approach must be different.
IBM often uses what you could call thought leadership validation. They leverage big, high-profile demonstrations or content marketing to gauge interest in complex technologies. Think about Watson winning Jeopardy!
Right. That wasn't just a game show appearance.
No, it was a carefully orchestrated event to validate market interest in AI capabilities before a significant investment in specific commercial products. It created buzz and tested the waters.
And Salesforce, they kind of wrote the book on sauce.
Salesforce pioneered the SaaS validation model through systematic customer development. They worked very closely with small groups of pilot customers in the early days, using tight iterative feedback loops to refine the product before scaling up. Classic build, measure, learn.
Looking at successful B2B startups, there seems to be a pattern of pivoting.
Yeah, the data suggests about 40% of successful B2B startups pivoted at least once. Companies like Retool, Segment, Amplitude all changed direction based on early validation learnings. And they often spend a significant amount of time, like 2 to 4 years, just in those validation phases.
Wow, 2 to 4 years, that's patience.
It's discipline. And what signals are they looking for? Again, actual payment is the strongest. Seeing continued prototype usage, people keep coming back to use even a clunky early version. Observing strong emotional reactions when discussing the problem, you know you've hit a nerve.
Yeah.
And getting cold inbound interest, people finding you and reaching out proactively. Those are powerful signs you're onto something.
So it's clear the process and tools matter, but you absolutely need the right people to make it work. Staffing and operating the lab, the human element.
Critically important. You can have the fanciest lab, the best software stack.
Mm-hmm.
It's all inert without the right people driving it.
Who are the core roles you need?
At the heart of it is the UX researcher. They're the intellectual core. They design and execute the studies end-to-end, defining goals, choosing the right methods, recruiting participants, moderating sessions, analyzing data, synthesizing findings.
They're the voice of the user in the build.
Exactly. They often have backgrounds in social sciences, psychology, anthropology, HCI. They understand human behavior.
Okay, who else is essential?
The critical enabler is the research operations manager, or REOPS manager. This role is becoming huge.
REOPS, what do they actually do?
They handle all the logistics that allow research to happen smoothly and scale effectively. Think participant recruitment pipelines and scheduling, managing the tech stack licenses and budgets, creating standardized processes and templates, maintaining that central insights repository we talked about.
So they free up the researchers to actually do the research.
Precisely. They make the engine run efficiently. And if you have a fancy physical lab, you might also need a lab technician to handle the AV hardware, setup, and maintenance.
Now there's this trend towards democratized research. What's that about?
It's basically empowering non-researchers, often product managers, designers, sometimes engineers, sometimes called people who do research or PWDRs, to conduct some types of research themselves.
Why is that happening? Just need for speed.
Speed is a big driver. Teams want insights faster. In this model, the dedicated UX researchers shift their role partly. They become more like teachers, coaches, consultants. They upskill the PWDRs, provide templates, set up guardrails.
Guardrails sound important.
Oh, absolutely. Because the big risk here is the illusion of insight. Untrained people conducting research can easily introduce bias or misinterpret findings. You can end up with bad data leading to bad decisions.
So how do you manage that risk?
Governance is key. Things like mandatory training or certification for anyone conducting research. Peer review of research plans before they launch. A clear charter defining what types of research PWDRs can do versus what needs a dedicated UXR. The central research team or lab becomes a center for quality control.
And REOPS plays a big role here, too.
Huge. REOPS provides the standardized processes, the templates, the self-serve tools that enable PWDRs to conduct simpler studies effectively and consistently. They are the linchpin of a successful democratization model.
How should companies structure their research teams? Centralized? Embedded?
There are a few models. Centralized. One team serves everyone. Good for consistency, but can become a bottleneck. Embedded. Researchers sit within specific product teams. Great for deep domain knowledge, but they can become isolated, and consistency can suffer.
So what's the most common?
The hybrid, or center of excellence model, seems to be the most common and scalable, especially in larger orgs. You have a central team that sets standards, manages REOPS, handles maybe the big strategic research projects. Then you might have other researchers embedded in key areas, plus your trained PWDRs handling more tactical, day-to-day research needs.
And if you're scaling up your research function, what's the key hire?
The sources were pretty clear on this. The single most impactful hire is a REOPS professional. If you have one researcher, the next hire should almost certainly be a REOPS specialist. That's how crucial operations are to scaling effectively. Don't just hire more researchers without supporting them.
That's a really strong statement about the importance of REOPS. Okay, let's wrap up with common pitfalls and best practices. What are the big mistakes people make?
In setup and methodology, a huge one is just inadequate requirements definition. Starting research without clear objectives, skipping the crucial problem validation step, not mapping out all the stakeholders, especially the difference between the buyer and the end user in B2B.
And errors in the research design itself.
Yeah, like applying BDC methods wholesale to B2B, where relationships and context are so different. Over-relying on surveys when you really need observational data. Using sample sizes that are too small or not representative, or only talking to your existing happy customers' confirmation bias alert.
Operational mistakes, too.
Things like poor management of observers during sessions, letting stakeholders interrupt or bias the participant. Inadequate documentation, the insights get lost. Poor follow-up with participants. Also, putting too much polish too soon on prototypes, wasting effort before validation.
And not having those kill criteria defined upfront.
Big one. If you don't know what failure looks like, you'll never stop a bad project. Other pitfalls include tool overload, buying tech you don't need or use, and siloed learning, where findings stay stuck within one team.
Technical pitfalls.
Simple setup failures, bad internet, unreliable audio, power outages can completely derail research sessions. And then scalability challenges as you grow lab capacity, allocating resources fairly, limitations in doing effective remote validation, integrating all the different tools.
Okay, lots to avoid. What about best practices for success? Let's start with early stage validation.
Focus on customer-centric discovery. Form clear hypotheses. Define that target market precisely. Do your competitive analysis. Methodologically, aim for maybe 20-30 deep customer interviews. Use targeted surveys to quantify findings. Talk to industry experts.
And what are you looking for?
You want to see problem urgency ratings above 8 out of 10. You want willingness to pay indicated by 60% or more of the prospects you talk to. And crucially, especially in B2B, prioritize relationship building during this phase. Validate the problem deeply before you even whisper about your solution.
Makes sense. Then for later stage prototype validation, when you have something more concrete.
Now it's about assessing market readiness. Expand your beta programs, maybe 10-15 diverse customers. Test the complete sales cycle if possible. Track customer success metrics closely. Validate the business model itself, pricing, sales process.
Goals here.
Aiming for things like 80% plus customer satisfaction in the beta. getting sales cycles under 6 months, securing actual customer case studies you can use, seeing a clear, believable path to $1 plus in annual recurring revenue.
And preparing for scale.
Yep. Things like setting up customer advisory boards for ongoing feedback, developing sales playbooks so the team knows how to sell it effectively.
Okay, stepping back, what are the overarching critical success factors for this whole validation engine concept?
Number one has to be executive buy-in and culture. Leadership has to genuinely value evidence over opinions. They have to be willing to kill cherished ideas if the data says no, and maybe even celebrate killing bad ideas early.
That takes courage.
It does. Second, foster cross-functional involvement. Get PMs, designers, engineers, marketers observing the research, participating in synthesis. It builds shared understanding and ownership.
Speed is important too.
Prioritize speed and iteration. Aim for just enough validation to make the next decision. Don't get stuck in analysis paralysis. Invest in talent-skilled researchers, re-ops, data analysts, and train the wider product teams.
Governance.
Establish clear governance. Who makes the go-no-go decisions based on the lab's findings? Ensure consistent access to users. Build those recruitment pipelines. Implement robust documentation and sharing. Make the insights accessible. Avoid the black box lab.
And finally,
Start phased. Don't try to boil the ocean. Start small, maybe with that pop-up lab. Demonstrate value with quick wins. Build credibility, then scale the investment intelligently.
that seems like a really practical way to approach it. So wrapping this up, building a validation engine, it sounds like it's way bigger than just a new process or team.
It really is. It's far more than a tactical investment. It's foundational. It's about building a resilient, adaptive organizational culture. It's a shift from making decisions based on intuition or hierarchy to basing them on evidence and empathy.
And the core benefit really is building that immunity to the primary cause of product failure, a lack of market need.
Exactly. It forces humility. It fosters curiosity. It instills that discipline of evidence-based decision-making. Ultimately, you build better products that people actually want and will pay for.
Okay, so for you listening, what are the key takeaways, the final recommendations?
First, if you want this to work, secure executive mandate. You absolutely need support from the top. It has to be seen as strategically important.
Second.
Follow the phased roadmap. Don't try to build the Taj Mahal overnight. Start small, prove the value, get those quick wins, and then scale up smartly.
And third, look ahead.
Embrace the future. Be prepared for AI to become more integrated as a research co-pilot. Formalize that research operations function. It's critical for scale. And always focus on demonstrating measurable business impact. Connect the research activities back to concrete business outcomes.
Show the value.
Show the value.
All right. And we always like to leave our listeners with a final thought to chew on. Here's one for today.
Let's hear it.
What fundamental, untested assumption about your product or your market is just sitting there waiting to be validated, or maybe invalidated in your very own lab, however simple it might be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Makes you think.
Something to consider. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.